storing items. Yep, that's right. Today, we're going to be making an item storage mechanic in UEFN. It'll allow players to take items they get in-game, then go back to their personal vault and deposit them. Then they'll be able to take those items at any point and bring it back into the game. You can make some pretty cool extraction game modes with this, or even you can add this mechanic to existing game modes like Red vs. Blues and allow your players to choose whenever they want to use the exclusive items they unlock. You know what else is nice? Saving time and money while making your maps better in the process, which is where we come in with Map Academy's Creator Success Program. It's got everything you need to find success as a Fortnite map creator. Whether you need help with difficult bugs or want to make huge complicated maps but don't know how to code them, we're there and ready to help you on your journey. So, if you want to take Fortnite Map Creation to the next level, check out the program. It'll be the first link in the description below. So, to get started, we are going to go and open up our Verse Explorer. If you don't have this, you want to hit Verse and Verse Explorer and it'll open it up. Then I'll right click on our project name and hit Add New Verse File to Project, which I will name our Inventory Manager, and then hit Create. This will take a moment, but whenever this does create, you want to go ahead and double click on it to open this up. So the first thing we want to do in here is go ahead and create our main item grantor, which is just going to be used to actually grant items to players whenever they take devices or take their weapons, items, whatever, outside of the vault. And then the next thing we need is we need to make a item that can be deposited. So in this case, and because this item is going to need a couple different devices that are all going to be packed into it, we're gonna make a custom class which we'll call our inventory slot, and it's of type class, which we need to make sure is concrete because we're going to be including editables inside of it. Then put some parentheses and a colon. Inside of this, we're going to need a couple things. First, we're going to need our item conditional. So this is going to be a conditional button device that is going to be used to determine if the player has any of the items currently in their inventory. Then we're gonna make a item tracker, which is going to be a tracker device. This is going to be used to represent and hold however many items this player has stored for this specific inventory slot. It's also going to be used to track persistence, or to save with persistence, which is nice. We're going to need to make another editable for our grantor index, which is just going to be an int. This is what we're going to use to determine what index in our item grantor that we actually want to grant the player that's going to correspond with this item. And to actually access this main item grantor, we're just going to copy all of this, except we don't want to make it an editable so that we don't have to select it in every single inventory slot. Instead, we'll make it a variable and then assign it later. But we're not done yet. We're going to need a billboard device. So I'll call this item billboard, type billboard device. And this is going to be used to display the tracker amount or display however many items that are stored. Then we're going to need an item remover of type item remover device, like so. This is going to be used to remove items from the player whenever they store an item. And then we only need two more things. First is a store button, which is going to be used to store items. And then the other button we need is an extract button, which will be used to extract items. So now that we have all of these editables, we have to actually make them do something. So first we'll go ahead and make an array of our inventory slots in our main device. So I'll call this our inventory slots of type inventory slot is equal to array but make sure that you specify that this is an array by putting brackets before it. And now we need to initialize all of these. So under onBegin, I'll go through every single inventory slot in our inventory slots. And I'll first go ahead and set the main item grantor equal to our item grantor here. Make sure we write our inventory slot item grantor, and then we'll go ahead and initialize our events. So we'll say our store or our inventory slots store button dot interacted with event dot subscribe inventory slot dot store. Now we need to go up here and actually make that function. So I will make a function called store that receives an agent and returns nothing. In this, we need to make the logic for what happens whenever a player tries to store items. And that's two main things. We need to increase the item tracker and the billboard by however much is being stored. And we also need to remove those items from the player. So to increase the tracker amount, we first need to get whatever the current tracker amount is, or the current stored amount. And to do that, we'll say current stashed amount is equal to our item tracker dot get value, and we'll get the value for our agent. Now that we have our current stashed amount, we need to get however many items are currently being stashed, or however many items that the player has at this moment. And to do that, we'll use our item conditional. So we'll say our currently held amount is equal to our item conditional dot get item count, and we'll get the item count for our agent. And then we need to put the index, which will be index 0, because it'll be the first item in our conditional button. Then we need to create a new stashed amount, which will be equal to the current stashed amount plus however much the player currently is holding, which will be our currently held amount. And then we need to change our values to this new stashed amount. So I'll say stashed tracker dot item tracker dot set value, and then our agent and our new stashed amount. So this will update our tracker, but then we also need to update our billboard. So I'll say item billboard dot set text, and we'll set it to our new stashed amount. Except here we're going to get an error, and that's because we need to convert our string to a message. So I'll go up here, write message, and press tab. The reason this works for me is because I am using this verse language snippets extension. So you can either install this and do what I just did, or you can just type this function out. But now that we have this, we can just throw this in the front, put some parentheses, and then cut and paste our string into those parentheses, and it'll now work. So now that the tracker and billboard are updated, then we can now actually go ahead and remove the items. So I'll say item remover dot remove, and I'll remove it for our agent. That's all we need to do there. So the item will now properly be stored. The next thing we need to do is go down here and handle our extraction. So I'll write inventory slot dot extract button dot interacted with event dot subscribe inventory slot dot extract. Now I'll go down here and make a function called extract, which we'll just copy the same as before, agent of type agent, that returns nothing. And in this, we need to first get the current stashed amount again. So I'll just go ahead and copy this line here. And then before we do anything else, we need to check if this current stashed amount is greater than 0, because if they don't have anything stashed, then we don't want them to be able to extract anything. So now that we got that out the way, we need to update our two values the same as before, but instead of adding to them, we're going to remove them by 1 because we're going to extract one item. So I'll say our new stashed amount, the same way as before, is going to be equal to the current stashed amount, except this time it'll be -1. Then we can go ahead and actually just update both of these the same as before. Also, I did just realize that I had forgotten squirrely brackets right here. That is very important, or else the billboard is just going to be set to the text new stashed amount, which is not what we want. So don't forget your swirly brackets. So now that these are updated, we just need to do what we did here, but instead of removing, we will grant. So we'll take our main item granter and we will grant item index and grant it for our agent, and then take the granter index here and add it so that the granter grants the correct item. And that's the extraction done. That's pretty much all we need to do here. There's just one more thing, and that is at the start of the game, the item trackers are going to persist, so they'll save, but the issue is these item billboards will not. So we want to go ahead and make sure all of those are updated. I'll go down here and we want to make sure we update it for every player. So I'll write for every single player in get play space dot get players. Then we will write islot dot update, and then I'll update it for our player. Let's go ahead and create that really quickly by going up here and making a new function that will receive an agent or a player. It'll be the same thing. We're gonna first get our current stash amount, so I'll just copy this, and then I will set the item billboard's text, except for instead we'll just set it to the current stash amount, like so. And now that this is called for all of the players at the start of the game, we also need to not forget about the players joining in progress. So I'll go down here and write get play space dot player added event dot subscribe, and then I'll just subscribe to islot dot update. So this will now account for new players that join in progress. And with that, we can now move to setting up our devices. So I'll minimize our verse code. I'll hit verse build verse code. And now if I go to my content browser, we'll have our inventory manager, which I'll drag into the play space. In this, the first thing we have is our main item granter. So I'll search for an item granter device, drag it into the play space. I'll change our on grant action to keep all, then add all of my items to our item list. So I'll add my first element and select whatever item you want. In this case, I'll just select this basic assault rifle, then add another element, and I'll add my SMG that I want to use. And then you want to do this for every single item that you want that can be stored in your vault. So I'll do another one for, let's say, a auto shotgun. And this is all I'm going to do for the tutorial. But if you have 100 items in your vault, you'll want to create 100 different elements to this array where you add them all. So now I can go ahead and go back into my device and select this. Then we have our inventory slots array, so I'll go ahead and add the first element. First up is a conditional button, so I'll search for that, drag it into the play space over here, and go ahead and face it towards me. This doesn't need to be anywhere, but it's a great way if you want to actually show what item this granter is for, or whatever item this storage slot is for. Or you could use images, that works as well, then you can just hide it away, but I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it here. In this, you want to turn on key items required, turn off consume key items, and then add whatever weapon this slot is going to be for. So I'll use this as my assault rifle, and that's all you should have to change in this conditional button. So I'll go ahead and select that in my inventory slot. Next up is our item tracker. This is going to be a tracker device, which you will want hidden. In this, we'll change set to track to events and change the target value to 0 so that it's infinite. Keep a sign on game start and joining in progress. You can change the tracker title if you want, but this is only used to hold the persistence, so you don't need to add one unless you want it to display on the UI. You can probably go down and just turn when target is reached to do nothing. It shouldn't matter because we have it set to 0, but it's better safe than sorry. Then you can turn off show on HUD and show progress. Then scroll down and turn on use persistence, autosave, auto load. And then I'll name this to tracker 1 because it'll be my first weapons tracker. Then I'll drop it down and select the tracker. Then we have our granter index. So what this will represent is the index that we have in our item granter. As you can see, my first item, which is this assault rifle, is index 0, so I'll just keep this one as 0. But here, if, for example, this weapon was actually my second index in that item granter, then I would change this to index 2. But because it's the 0 index, I'll have 0 here. Next up is our billboard device. So I'll grab one of these, throw it down. I'm going to use this to just show the text number. So I'll actually get rid of the text or put a placeholder in quickly. Then I will increase the text size by a bit and add a outline to it. Then I will move this over and place it where I want it to be, which in this case is going to be right here in front of my conditional button one. Then I will drop this down and select our billboard. Next up is the item remover, which you will want hidden. So I'll go ahead and place this down here over by our tracker. For the affected objects, you can set this to all objects, then amount to remove, select percentage and keep this to 100 so that it will remove all of the items that the player is currently holding in their inventory. Then you want to add an element to the item list, and in this select the corresponding weapon that you have in your conditional, and that's all you need to do. So we can go ahead and select that in our inventory slot. Then lastly, we have our two buttons. So I'll get a button device, drag it down and place it over here. This will be my store button. So I'll make sure to change the text to store items. Then I'll duplicate this and call this my extract button, and then change the interaction text to extract items. You can change the settings or the look of the button down here. Maybe you want them to be invisible and just be in front of a picture of the weapon, but I'll just leave them as is. Now I can go back into this and select both of these, my store button and my extract button, like so. And now I can go ahead and add my next inventory slot. And for this, I'm just gonna go ahead and select all of my different devices that I used for this button specifically. You don't need to duplicate the item granter. Then I'll hold Alt and duplicate all of these. It seems like it glitched out, so I'll reselect it and then hit Control C, Control V, and then move it. And now all of these are duplicated. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one more time so that I create them for all three. But the same as before, if you have 100 weapons, then you're gonna have to create 100 sets of these items. But now the only thing I need to change in these is go into my conditional button and change the weapon. So here I'll select my SMG, and same thing for my item remover. I want to change the item that it's removing to the SMG. And then we move on to our last weapon, where I'll change this to our auto shotgun and the item remover to an auto shotgun. And just like that, all three of these are created. And all we have to do is go down here and add them all. So I will select our conditional 2, item tracker 2, index 1, because it's my first index in the item granter, billboard 2, item remover 2, store button 2, extract button 2. Then the same thing for the third slot. Conditional 3, item tracker 3, granter index 2, billboard 3, item remover 3, store button 3, and extract button 3. And with that, we now have an inventory system. One more thing I'll do before testing is go ahead and place some item spawners down of the 3. So I'll search for an assault rifle and drag it down here. Then my SMG, drag it down, and my shotgun, and drag it down so that I can actually use and test the inventory system with these. I'll select all 3 of these, change the time before first spawn to 1 second, the time between spawns to 3. And with that, I'll now go ahead and either launch session, or in my case, I will push changes. One more quick thing before we test is I actually made a mistake. You want to select all of your item removers and make sure that the affected objects is set to objects in device and not all objects. But let's get back to testing it. Okay, so now in game, if I go up here and press any of the buttons, it does not work. But if I go over here and pick up these, go ahead and wait for a second, assault rifle. And now if I go over here and I click store items, it's going to take both of my assault rifles and our inventory count goes up. And now what I can do is extract this item whenever I'd like, or I can store it back. I'll go and store all of my items, and then whenever I want to come and grab them again, I can just extract them. I can extract all of them, and it'll also all save with persistence. So let's say I want to store all of these and the game, and then wait a second and start the game again. You'll see once I start the game, all of our numbers are automatically updated, and I can go over here and extract my items that I have stored. And with that, you now know how to create an item storage mechanic inside of UEFN. If you found this tutorial helpful and you want to support us in creating more awesome tutorials just like this one, then like and subscribe and comment what you want us to make a tutorial on next. Also, don't forget to check out Map Academy in the description below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.